Great, thank you. Cool. Thanks everybody for coming out on this rainy day. Um, my name is Sonia Gonzalez. I'm going to talk to you today about a career in filmmaking. I am a film editor mostly. I've directed my own film that was on Channel 13 last year. I'll show you a clip of that. Bragging Rights is the title of it. It's a documentary about stickball, but I'll get to that in a second. I'm originally from the Bronx, from the Kingsbridge section of the Bronx. When I was 10, I moved to Washington Heights. Yeah, so holla in the Heights. So I just want to kind of go around and get everybody's names and what do you think you want to do in the film business? Even if it changes later, because it will, because I thought I wanted to do one thing and then I landed up doing something else. So just real quick.
I'm Claire, and I think I might want to do directing and editing.
Okay.
My name's Stephanie, and I'm not sure what I want to do. Probably write.
Okay.
My name's Jamie. Maybe writing and directing.
Okay.
My name is Maria, and maybe directing.
Cool.
Rebecca, directing and writing.
My name's Yvonne, and I think I want to be a lawyer.
Lawyer? Entertainment lawyer?
Criminal lawyer.
Okay. Cool.
My name is Franceda.
Okay. And what do you want to do in the film business? Nothing yet? Okay. Cool. Screenwriter. Cool. Writer? I'm sorry, hon? What do you want to do? Director. Cool. Pediatrician.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Tarania, and a writer.
Okay.
Jonathan, surgeon.
Surgeon. Wow.
Nico, writer, director.
Okay. Back there. Oh, okay. All right, cool. I'm really excited by the amount of women that want to write and direct in here because we definitely need more writers and directors. And contrary to what you heard, there's room for us. You know, it's really tough to be a white female director because there's such a small percentage of them. It's even tougher for us to be a woman of color director. But for me, I look at that and I say, you know what? That's a perfect opportunity for us to flip it because we've got stories that they haven't seen before. How many people have seen the film I Like It Like That? It's kind of old. It's in the mid-90s. Okay. The woman who directed that film, Darnell Martin, she's also from the Bronx. And she's directing lots of TV right now. She directs mad episodes of like Law & Order and Grey's Anatomy and all that stuff. So she's doing really well. How many people have seen the film Raising Victor Vargas? Raising Victor Vargas? That was a really good film, too. It wasn't directed by a person of color, but it starred people of color, and I thought I particularly liked that film. Even though I'm Puerto Rican, I grew up with a lot of Dominicans in Washington Heights, so they're fam, you know? And I really appreciated that finally, like, you know, Puerto Ricans have gotten love in cinema. You know, it's about time the Dominicans get love in cinema, too, and I thought that was really cool. I'm going to tell you how I got into the business. It's a quick story. It was kind of a crazy story. When I went to the high school fashion industries, and high school fashion industries, and I wasn't really sure. I thought I wanted to do advertising because, you know, I'd seen this TV show and people were in advertising and it looked really fun and they didn't do anything all day but play around and come up with wacky ideas. And I was like, word, I want to do that. I had no idea what the real deal was. So I went from high school fashion industries to the Fashion Institute of Technology. And it was way different than what I thought it was going to be. And I wasn't comfortable with the idea of like, you basically have to convince people you need this. You know, you really need this in your life. And I felt funny about that because I was like, nah, you don't really need this in your life. So after my first semester, I knew I wasn't cutting it, but I didn't want to drop out of school and I really wasn't sure what to do. And in my family, you know, my mom started to go to college, but then she didn't finish because she had us and, you know, so she didn't finish school. And I didn't really have anybody in my family who had been in film, who had been in advertising. Like, we were like mad working class, you know, just, you know, you work a job and you stay at that job forever and that's it. And a lot of those jobs weren't necessarily creative jobs. I mean, my mom was creative at her job, but it wasn't a creative job. So I didn't really have that kind of guidance. And I never really left my neighborhood, so I wasn't really exposed to anything. Like I was in Washington Heights, I never went south of 125th Street, rarely. Like my first day of high school, which I lived on 179th and St. Nicholas, I went to school on 24th off of 7th Ave. I swear I got lost on the train. I landed up on 23rd Street in Queens, and I was all like nervous. And I was like, because I never, left my neighborhood, which my mom thought was okay, but when you come to think about it, you're not exposed to anything in the world, and when you're young, the world is mad wide open for you. It's yours. You do whatever you want, like right now. You don't have any obligations. You still live at home. You don't have to pay rent. You do whatever you want, and that's great. So I knew I wasn't cut out for advertising. I cut out from school one day, and I'm sitting in the movie theater, and it was a really funny movie, and all the credits are rolling. And I'm like, yo, like a lot of fun to work on a movie. All these people, I don't know what a key grip does. I don't know what a PA does or any of these things, but I want to be a part of that. So then I went to a library, a bookstore actually, and I bought a book about what all those film terms were, because I wanted to identify right away specifically what I wanted to do. So I didn't have guidance in my home, but I had initiative. You know what I mean? I had like ambition, and that's a good start. So got this film dictionary, figured out, okay, I don't know what these things are, but I'll just apply to film school and do a little bit of everything and then just figure it out. Went to NYU Film School, which was a really kind of a good and a kind of shocking experience for me. I don't know how many of you guys can relate to this, but for me, because I never left my neighborhood, I wasn't interacting with white kids that had a lot of money. And it was a really intimidating experience for me. And I didn't realize that it would be. You know what I mean? It was just like I was struggling to like pay my tuition, and I got like lots of grants and stuff like that, and crazy financial aid, not even financial aid, let me say that, loans that to this day I'm still paying, and I've been out of film school like forever. But it was an intimidating experience because these kids had money to make films and da-da-da, and they were just doing it, And for me, I was just like all of a sudden the stories that I wanted to tell, I felt nervous. I was like, because I don't know why, I just felt like, man, my stories are mad hood, and it's like, who cares, all these stories about people that are taking a road trip to Arizona, whatever, doing whatever, and that's cool, but I did not relate to that, and they didn't relate to my story, and at the time, my accent was a lot thicker, and I was just all like, all like that, just like everything exasperated me really quickly, and it was really nerve-wracking to be at NYU that first semester. And I still needed a role model. And at that time, Spike Lee had just come out. And I'm kind of dating myself here, but whatever. He had just done the film Do the Right Thing, right? And if you guys haven't seen that film, you gotta see that film. Do the Right Thing. It's came out in 1989, but it's still relevant today. It's a really good movie. You guys got to see that movie. So when I saw that movie, I was like, damn, I want to do what he's doing. Like, I was so blown away. Spike wasn't careful with his message. He wasn't like, oh, I don't want to hurt people's feelings. Let me just be careful and delicate, whatever, and be diplomatic. No, he was like, just like backslapped everybody. And I like walked out of that theater, I was shaking. I was like so blown away by it. And I had read so much about him. I was like, I want to know who he is and who does he think he is? You know what I mean? To like be so audacious to do films like this. And I read that he employed a lot of people of color on his crews. And because of that, got a lot of people of color into film unions where historically they were not allowed into film unions. And Spike, at that time, was just like, no, these are my peoples, and I'm getting them in, and this is who I want to work on my film. You don't like it, that's your problem. And I was like, damn, like, that's crazy. So I made it my mission to get to know him. And he was on Arsenio Hall, this is back in the day. And I was just like, I was still mad open, like, on everything that he was saying. So I wrote him a letter, like a 3-page letter on like notebook paper, and I ripped it out and I sent it to him. And this is my first semester of film school. I was a waitress at the time. I was grinding. I was like going to school full time, working full time, getting no sleep, doing homework, doing everything I had to do because I was like, I'm paying a lot of money to go to school. I'm not gonna kick back and just be like, whatever. You know what I mean? Like this has to mean something. I have to invest in this, you know? And my mom and my dad, they didn't kind of understand it. They were like, damn, this is really expensive. Like, why don't you like go to like a different school? You don't really have to, you know, like, what are you doing, you know? And it's like, they were supportive, but not, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't know how to support me, and that's cool, you know what I mean? I don't judge that, you know? But it was what it was, you know? So, wrote Spike this letter. I'm waitressing. I'm getting ready for work. Bring. Hello. It's like, yeah, can I speak to Sonia Gonzalez? And I'm like, yeah, speaking. Yeah, this is Spike Lee. I got your letter, and I was, and all my friends knew that I was like crazy sweating Spike, and I thought that one of my friends were like playing a joke on me, and I was like, yeah, right. And he's like, yo, this is Spike Lee. You want a job or not? And like the way he spoke to me, I was like, yo, that voice is unmistakable. I was like, yeah. He's like, get your ass down to Brooklyn, and I had never been to Brooklyn. So I was like, all right. So he puts his other editor on the phone, another Puerto Rican woman, and she's so funny. She's like, habla español? And I said, sí. And she's like, okay, you're going to take the R train, right? And like, she gives me instructions in English. So like, he's like, get down here in an hour. And I got dressed real fast, and I was sweating. I was nervous. I lived in Queens at the time. I got on the G train, went across, and I'm like with my little paper, like looking for the address, all nervous and stuff, sweating. I was like, if somebody's playing a joke on me, they got me good. Got me good, because here I am all like, you know, looking like a crackhead walking down the street. So I get into his firehouse. He has this famous firehouse in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. I see all these posters around. I was like, oh, I'm in the right place. And I was just like, I think I remember it now, and like I get like real nervous, you know, because I remember like it was yesterday. And it was a Saturday. He was editing Jungle Fever. And even though it was a Saturday, it looked like a Monday morning. It was so busy. So I get up there, you know, and there's like all these people there, and Spike's all the way in the back. And I look at him, he looks at me, he starts to come, he just like walks over and stuff. And I was just like, all right, be cool, be cool, be cool. And he was like, what's up? I was like, what's up? You know, like trying to be smooth, you know? And he was like, so yeah, I got your letter. I was like, yeah. He was like, all right. It was like real few words, you know? And he was like, let me show you around. So he shows me the editing room. He had 2 editing rooms. And he's like, yeah, this is one right here. And I'm looking around. I say hi to everybody, you know, whatever. And then he takes me upstairs, and he shows me the other editing room. And I meet the other Puerto Rican female director. I was like, what's up, mama? You know, whatever. I was like, yes. And then he takes me downstairs back to the first editing room. And he's like, yeah, so sit right there. So I'm thinking he's going to come back, and him and the editor are going to interview me. Because for my first year of film school, let me backtrack a little bit. I had done a lot of production classes because they throw you right in as soon as you go into film school so you can figure out what you want to do. And it was a lot of fun. I figured out early on that I wasn't so crazy about production. It just was a little too chaotic for me, and I loved editing. I'm a very like kind of organized person. I like to, you know, put everything in compartments and all that. And so that really worked out for me, and I discovered that quick. So in my letter to Spike, I knew the term apprentice editor, which is you just get into the editing room and you're that bottom of the food chain person, and you just work your way up. So I told him I want to be an apprentice editor. So I'm sitting there, I think that him and the editor are going to interview me, and Spike just disappears for the rest of the day. And I'm sitting there like 9 hours watching the editor cut, and I'm really nervous. And you know, there's a scene with Queen Latifah when she first started doing movies, and Spike came in, he was like, who's that? I was like, duh, Queen Latifah. And he was like, yeah, you know, whatever. And then he like, after 9 hours, he comes in, and then he watches the scene, he's about to walk out, and I was like, Spike, what's up? You know? And he's like, be here Monday morning at 7 a.m. I was there at 6:30. I was in the train all like, nervous. And I stayed working for him for like 3 years. I worked on Jungle Fever, on a bunch of commercials and music videos that he did, and I worked on Malcolm X, which was really exciting. That was so exciting because he had so much trouble with the studio. You know, they didn't, after a certain point, they were just like, we don't know, you know, whatever. And then they just pulled their support. And then Spike went and got money from Oprah, from Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, Bill Cosby, to finish the movie. So it was a really exciting time to be at 40 Acres, the name of his company. And From there, like New York City is kind of like a small pool. You know, once you get one job, you know what I mean? Like you build on that. Once I started working for Spike, it was real easy for me to get work as an apprentice editor, and I just kept going and going. And this is before editing became digital. You know, this was the days where people were still actually cutting film. Not with the scissors, but with like, you know, a different kind of instrument. But from there, I stayed in editing for a long time. Spike's editor, Sam Pollard, mentored me. And he was great. He was awesome. I'm going to show you, after I did a couple of years of editing, I was like, okay, I want to be a director. I want to be a director, especially after I was Darnell Martin's assistant on I Like It Like That. And just seeing her, she shot right there on 170th and Townsend Avenue. Most of the film was shot over there. On 167 and Findlay Avenue. We shot most of the film down there as well. And just seeing her hold it down, like she had to be really tough and had to be really assertive. It wasn't like, well, you know, I don't know. She wasn't doing any of that. She's like, I want this, I want that, I want this. She did her homework. She was real thorough. She was super prepared. And that's the one thing that I'm going to keep emphasizing again and again is being thorough, prepared, and do as much research as you can about your particular field of interest, because there are a million other people that want to do what you're doing, and they're just gonna try and do it better than you. So you got to be on top of your game. So once I saw Darnell directing, I wanted to direct my own film. So I directed a short film with my sister. My sister has a little bit of a wild style life, and we thought it'd be funny to do a short film about when she used to work in a number spot, you know, and that turned out well. It did a bunch of festivals. Then after that, I wanted to do a film about the history of stickball. Stickball, I don't know how many people know what stickball is. Yeah. People know what stickball is. Street baseball, basically. A lot of people still play it in East Harlem on Sundays, and they play it up in the actually the Soundview section of the Bronx on Sundays. So I was really attracted to this game because of the way that it brought people together and it kept communities together. And the way, in particular, how Puerto Rican men keep the game going. And I'll just show you a trailer from the film. I think it's 1, 2. If you press the second. Yeah, thank you. Cool. Oh, cool. Perfect. You're good. So I just press pause or play. All right, cool.
What's special about stickball? That's all we had to do. You got a rubber ball and you rob somebody's broom from the fire escape.
It was cheap.
Stickball is a poor man's game. It was played in the ghettos throughout the 5 boroughs.
It was more than an activity, I guess. It was really part of the fabric of the communities back then.
A lot of the game consists of arguing, which is a lot of the fun.
You just like your father. You can't hit.
Yeah, they'll be really mean. They'll say, you be cleaning your house. Women can't play stickball. They'll just keep on going. But most of it is just the traditional things a woman should be doing and why am I here?
I played ball to date with fellas that I played with when I was 15 years of age.
We've lasted longer than some of the baseball players. You don't see any 70-year-old baseball players.
We're the young guys. We'll continue it.
We need to understand what was beautiful about those games so that we can find a way to transfer that game to a new generation so that some beautiful aspect of what makes New York so special is not lost.
Cool. So that movie I started in 2000, and it took me a long time to do because I was using my own money. That was before I learned how to do proper fundraising and things like that. And when you're a filmmaker, one of the things that you should learn from jump is, if possible, don't spend your own money. There's money out there. You just put in for grants and you put in for different proposals and things like that, and you try and get foundations or different organizations to fund your projects, or you do fundraisers and all your friends come and support and they kick down some money and things like that. Because this was crazy expensive. I didn't even know, like, when I added up over the years, I didn't even know I had that much money. I was like, damn. So, so that was a good experience, and it taught me a lot about directing, and I say that in particular to the women here and to the men who want to direct. The best way to learn how to direct is by kind of messing up. You know what I mean? So do not be afraid of failure. There's no such thing as failure. There are only learned lessons. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times people hold back because they're afraid that they're going to look like an idiot. There's no failure. There's only discovery. You know what I mean? There's like, you figure something out, and like so many mistakes that I made on here that just taught me for the next time, that were better lessons to me that I remember, because you don't really learn so much on success, you know, because you just, you know, it just coasts by and you take it for granted. But failure, you know what I mean? You learn so much. And then you learn through other people's failures too. Like on I Like It Like That, there were a lot of things that Darnell did that I wasn't experienced enough to be like, you know what, I don't think I would do that. But at the same time, like now I'm like, I don't know if I would have approached it that way. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like how women come into this business, you know, you have to be assertive. You know what I mean? But you also, I don't want to say the word diplomatic. Basically, as a writer-director, you're trying to get people to come on board for your vision, to help you out to complete your vision, right? So what you want to do is you want to get people excited, like, yo, this is going to be the bomb party. Everybody's going to, you know, it's going to be so great, and your name's going to be on it, and it's going to be, you know, it's going to be great that we're a team. You know what I mean? You got to be like the best captain of a team, if you will, because basically that's what you are. You know what I mean? You got to keep people excited about your vision. There's been so many like crash and burn stories about directors who curse people out because they see other people doing it and they think, you know, it equals power. You know, the volume equals power, and it doesn't. Because people don't want to do anything for you, and people are just like, whatever, she wants me to go, you know, move her camera. I'm not moving nothing, whatever. And people don't want to do stuff for you. So you just got to be strategic, prepared, thorough, patient, because there's so many times on a film set that you could lose your mind. There's just, you're waiting around, things are taking forever to happen. You'd be surprised how long it takes to light a scene. Like my first time on this film, actually, where the guy was lighting for an interview, it took him like an hour. And I'm like, yo, how long does it take to plug in some lights? Dang. But, you know, he was putting gels, and he was doing this, and he was doing that. And, you know, he made sure that dude wasn't shiny, you know. And, you know, when I saw it, I was like, okay, that's what takes so long. And I just got to, like, you know, there's so many times I'd be like, hurry up, you know. And, you know, thank God I didn't do that, because he would have been like, cállate, you know what I mean? But, so that didn't, I learned to shut up and just watch and observe and be patient and just, okay, this is what's up. I'm going to learn as much about this as possible the next time so that, you know, I know. You just need to know as much as you can possibly know at every point. After I did this film, I just stayed in editing because it's what I know how to do. It's what I've been doing forever. 9/11 happened, and that really decimated the film community here in New York. Nobody wanted to shoot here. People weren't allowed to shoot here. There wasn't anything, there was no production, and people were unemployed for a really long time. I was unemployed for like almost 2 years, and it got really bad for me. It was just a struggle. And at that point, it hadn't occurred to me, oh, let me go to LA. When you're in the film business, you kind of got to have it in the back of your mind to be bi-coastal. You can make it here. It's a hustle here. It's a hustle in LA too. You got to just hustle regardless. Just be the best that you can be at what it is you want to do. But you got to hustle because other people are hustling too, and other people are good too, you know? So after 9/11, after 2 years, I was like, you know what? I'm going to pack it in, and I'm going to just go to LA and see what happens over there. I went over there and had worked some contacts that I had. I knew a friend of a friend of a friend who was working at this company where they edit DVD special features. DVD special features are now the big thing. Everybody wants like special features and behind the scenes and the making of, right? These little mini documentaries that come on to every films. So I went out there and I was doing that. I cut one of the special features for the Jack Black film School of Rock. There was a bunch of other features, but I cut one of them. And I was like, wow. And it was shocking to be in LA. That was a whole other shocking experience, going from very urban New York City to kind of suburban city of LA. you know, and just a different vibe out there. And I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna stop. My God, this is so different. You know, I'm just gonna just roll with it. Just roll with it. You know, just a friend of mine told me last summer, and I didn't employ it until when he told me last summer, just be water, just flow. You know what I mean? Do what you gotta do, be the best that you can, but flow. You know, be flexible. You know what I mean? Be open to the experiences that come to you because they're coming to you for a reason. These lessons are gifts for you. So just be open to whatever they are. So I went to LA, edited the DVD special features. I got a couple of them that I'll show you. If you guys, you know, have seen Four Brothers special features, I edited all of those. Holla! So if you get a chance to watch that, again, watch them again. Those are the ones that I edited. I edited a bunch of crazy special features. Like I went from Four Brothers to then the re-release of Facts of Life Season 1. I edited that. I edited Gidget, The Flying Nun. I edited these other films. In addition to editing DVD special features, I also edited the film of this Puerto Rican director. It was called Destination Unknown. I edited the film of this Dominican director called El Círculo Vicioso that played in Dominican Republic. I edited a documentary called New Eurekans. I was one of the editors on that, which was on Channel 13. And a bunch of other things, you know, trying to be flexible as an editor. I would love to just edit feature films, but again, you gotta be flexible. So right now, and you gotta stay up on the technology. You know what I mean? Like the technology's key. When I first came into editing, all you had to do was know how to kind of tell a story into piece. Like, okay, we have a scene here, 2 people, you know, she's about to tell her some bad news. We get a close-up on her, and then a 2-shot of them, and then maybe a cutaway of something else. And then an editor has to figure out how does that come together, okay? Do I stay on her when she tells her the bad news, or do I stay on her when she hears the bad news? And those are some of the decisions that you make as an editor. And it's really interesting. It's regular, like, people watching the film are not supposed to notice it. It's as if you're looking at this argument in person, like, oh, snap, like, you know, go back and forth. Editing simulates that. You people looking back and forth, like, oh, what happens now? You know what I mean? So my point in that is that's all you needed to know when you first got into editing. Now, you pretty much need to be kind of a geek because everything is, like, for the internet and creating content for the web and iPods and all these different platforms that are small, and how do you, you know, condense your film to be able to upload it onto all these different platforms. So you kind of got to be a geek as well, and that's been tough for me because I'm not a geek. So I'm going to show you, huh? Oh, well, you know what? It's important to be a geek. Like back in the day, and I'm not saying because he's here. I'm saying it because you have to be a geek. If you want to be an editor in this business, you must be a geek. And that's not a bad thing anymore. You know what I mean? It's a good thing. You got to like be up on it. So I'm going to show you a piece that I did on The Ghost Whisperer. The Ghost Whisperer, we did this piece on the opening title credits. I don't know if you guys watch it. The opening titles has all these pictures that have all the symbolism in it. And the whole piece, and this is just a little bit of the piece, talks about what the little things signify and how they put it together. So once I show you the piece, I'll talk to you about the different elements that went into it so that you know exactly what went into the editing of it. So let's see.
The idea was to come up with a title sequence that differentiated us from anything else on television. And when you see the opening of the show, you'll see these titles. They're very beautiful, they're very special. They're done by Digital Kitchen, and they're based on artwork.
It's not so much how a bee moves, it's how you imagine a bee moving. Because when we were mimicking exactly bee movements, it didn't look right, it was too surreal. It's once we slowed it down and kind of made it hover. So getting that right was key.
We started out with a cloud cover, and it's kind of moody and very mystical, and then we pull back and we reveal the beautiful Jennifer Love Hewitt, who is Melinda, and she's our ghost whisperer. And as we pull back, we realize that she's standing in this field, and it's not a traditional cemetery. It's very unique, and it's got holes in it. And when you look at it, there are heads that are starting to pop up out of the holes, which represent the spirits that are rising. This is not a field of dead spirits. This is a field of vibrant ghosts who are going to go on a journey with her.
So the elements that went into that special feature, the company that I worked for, it was such a great experience because they give you the material and then you cut it all together. So with that stuff, I had the woman being interviewed about what the pieces were. She was one of the only interviews we had. The people who did the graphics on the show, I had the before and after pieces. So where you see where nothing is moving and it's just pictures of Jennifer Love Hewitt and pictures of things like ghosts and things like that. Those were the storyboards that we had. Then I had pieces from the real show. We had to come up with, when her name comes up and the little smoke thing comes up, we created that in editing. I picked the music, the little, before the two boxes that are next to each other, before and after comparisons, we did that. So all these different elements went into editing, and it was a great job because they just left me alone to do it, and I came up with everything myself, and they would come in, oh, we like this, we like that, we don't like this, change that, and it was cool. So that was a really great experience working at this company because it was a long job. I worked there for 3 years. It was a staff job. I got paid really well doing it. Once you get into certain film jobs in the business, it's good money. You know what I mean? It's a hustle because they're like, some of them are freelance. If they're staff, it's great. Editing is staff in some places, so I worked that for a little while. Some of the things that I learned in editing all different platforms is being flexible, like I mentioned, being patient, being on top of my game. I have some handouts for you guys. You guys, most of you are interested in directing, but from a director-editor relationship, it's really important to, a lot of directors love the editing process because it's not as chaotic as being on production. So a lot of this applies to you guys who want to be in directing. It's just, a lot of it is just the essentials, how to be professional in this game, especially as people of color. I've confronted a lot, especially going to California. People hear my accent. To me, I don't hear my accent. But to them, they're like, as soon as I say one word, oh, where are you from? And I'm like, and it makes me anxious because I'm just like, okay, are they getting ready to judge me? Are they getting ready to be like, oh, she's Puerto Rican, so her skills are going to be limited. She's poor. She's probably the first one that made it from her family, which is true, but that doesn't mean that I'm limited, you know what I mean? Or she's this, or she's that, all the misconceptions or preconceptions that come with being a Puerto Rican woman, or being from around the way, or, oh, you like J-Lo? You know what I mean? Or, like, whatever, you know what I mean? So a lot of this is all about being professional, about being on top of your game, having business cards, networking, really using opportunities to get yourselves out there, online job sites, whether you're an editor or director or production designer, whatever, actor, seeing films and reading books, yeah, I said that right, about your trade, you know what I mean? Just being real thorough, websites to study craft, so I'll just, let me just give this out, make sure, and you just pass it back, thank you. Yeah, so that's the thing that I implore you guys, you know what I mean? If you're gonna be in this game, be as thorough, as professional, as passionate as you feel about it, let it reflect in your work. Be prepared, be on time. That's one of the things that was challenging for me at first. From where I'm from, like if somebody says, oh, you got to be there at 8 o'clock. With Spike, I didn't mess around because he yelled at me from the first time we were on the phone. But most people are like, oh, be there at 8 o'clock. I would get there 8:15, whatever. It's not a big deal. Don't play with that. You know what I mean? Somebody tells you 8 o'clock, be there 7:45. You know what I mean? Because it's just, that's the other misconception that people have of us as people of color. Oh, CP time. She gonna get their Puerto Rican time, whatever. You know what I mean? And it's just like, that's what they say about us. And I don't want, not that I care what they think about us, but I want to present myself as professionally as possible, as somebody who knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, I have an accent, but I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So don't play with me. You know, and I'll show you what I'm doing. This is the body of work that I have, and I'm very proud of the body of work that I have. That's it. Stay up with the technology. As an editor, you're in service to the director. I had to learn that the hard way, too. A lot of times I'll be editing something for a director and thinking like, oh, she so doesn't know what she's doing or whatever, or he doesn't know what he's doing, and just letting that go. This is that person's film. You are servicing that person's vision. Roll with it, you know? And that's about it. You know, I'm still in the game. Because I'm being water, I'm having to roll with different roles and technologies. The new thing now for a lot of editors is being what's called a predator, producer/editor. So what a predator does, because a lot of executive producers have figured out that a lot of editors, because they're in the editing room and they know exactly what they need to put a piece together, oh, you go shoot that then. You go shoot that. So a lot of predators, like I'm going to be a predator on Damages, the Glenn Close show, on this other show called New Amsterdam, where this detective goes back in time or comes forward in time, Canterbury's Law, all these different shows that I'm going to go on set, interview all these different people, and then go back to the editing room and cut these pieces together that are then going to go on the web. Interesting quick story before we get to some Q&A, is the other day, on Friday, I had done an interview for Damages with Glenn Close and all these stars that are going to be on Damages. And it's what's called the EPK, electronic press kit, and Entertainment Tonight uses it, and like I basically shoot these interviews, and then Entertainment Tonight will use it, or like those different outlets will use it so that Glenn Close is not interviewed like 10 million times. She's interviewed once, some basic questions, and then it goes on TV. So the other day I'm sitting home watching TV, whatever, and this promo piece is on for Damages, and she's like, so I did a lot of research as a lawyer, and you know, she's talking, I'm like, oh snap, she's talking to me. She's talking to me. She's not just talking to me in the metaphorical sense, like, you know, she's in my living room. She was talking to me. I interviewed her, and it just tripped me out, you know? And it's not a big deal for some people, but for me it's a big deal, you know, from where I'm from, you know? And that was really cool. That was really cool. And I'm just grinding, just grinding. So any questions?
Okay, so when you ask a question, state your name and raise your hand nice and high. First, is your name?
My name is Siddiqui. Doing documentaries helped me become a good activist, because the guy that did Rwanda, being an activist helped me become a good activist.
Yep. Yeah. Become an activist or an actor? Which one?
No, I'm saying doing documentaries, did it help you become a good activist?
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of documentary filmmakers come from an activist background, and that's why they do documentaries. So there is, you know, most of them come from an activist background, and they recognize film as a vehicle to just get their message across. And then a lot of times, because you have to do so much research, you have to be an expert on the subject that you're documenting, it makes you even more committed. You know, it doesn't ever make you less committed. It makes you more committed, because you have to be so, again, thorough, you know, with your joint. With the stickball stuff, you know, that's not, when you look at it at first hand, like activism, but it kind of is in a small way, because it's about communities keeping together. New York is changing so much, and so many of our neighborhoods are getting gentrified, and you know, we're being pushed out of our neighborhoods because it's getting too expensive to live, like in Harlem, you know, some parts of the Bronx. You know, it's just, stickball is a way for me to show that, one, these are people that like really stick together. Two, I recognize in the media there's a stereotype of men of color who don't take care of their kids, who are not around for their families. Sometimes it's true. You know, a lot of times our fathers are not present, but a lot of times the ones that are present should get some love. You know what I mean? Should get some recognition. And this film was a way for me to show men of color that are active in their community and that love their community and that are father figures and mentor figures in their community. So yeah, it definitely makes activism a more profound experience.
Okay, we have another question.
Javon, how long have you been a predator?
A predator. A predator's a new thing. I've only been a predator for a year. I first started on Rescue Me, which is the Dennis Leary fighter show. And that was a lot of fun. You know, the crew's really small. They shoot here in New York. I haven't cut the stuff for that piece. I just go and I get the interviews and I get stuff like, okay, if the piece is about, they're doing an episode on, they did an episode that I filmed on, they're in this building and like, ha ha ha, what's going on? And hey, there's no fire here or whatever. And then the floor drops out from underneath them. So it's this whole stunt. It was the first episode of the season. It was this whole stunt that was involved. So I was like my own curiosity, because I approach it like, what would I want to see? You know what I mean? As a predator, you know, not internet predator, regular, producer, editor. What would I want to see? What do I want to know about how they did this stunt? So then I asked them a bunch of questions. I asked the stunt guy, like, how do you prepare the actors for this? Because a lot of the actors wanted to do their own stunt, and it was really dangerous because not only does the floor fall, but it falls into a ball of fire. So the guys had to slide down, and there's like a space between where they fell on the mattress and then this ball of fire that's against the wall. So interviewing the actors, because they, to a certain extent, did their own stunt, but then the stunt guys were like, okay, let the professionals, you know, handle it. But then the actors, you know, the actors are all about trying to be funny, which is cool. I love it. It was great. And they were like, yeah, we're doing our own stunt and, you know, just talking mess, you know, and that was a lot of fun. So this summer is when I'll be more intensely a predator. So I'll let you know later how it goes.
Okay, another question. Yes.
How's your experience as acting has been?
It's been great. I am very active. I was very active in the 90s around police brutality issues. I was involved with the Anthony Baez case, getting Francis Lavoti behind bars. It was the first time that a cop had ever been put behind bars for killing not a pedestrian, a regular citizen. I'm involved with media literacy issues in terms of like talking to different young people about recognizing, just critically watching media and recognizing different things about it, you know, and just not just absorbing it, and also being active in supporting products that are good. I don't believe in like, oh, you should support everything Latino, you should support everything Black, because some of the stuff isn't good, you know, some of the stuff is low quality entertainment, you know, it just perpetuates a lot of stereotypes itself, you know, we don't need help with that, you know. I also work with an organization called Chica Luna Productions, which was founded in 2000, and what that is, it's an organization that's based out of East Harlem, where one of our programs is called the F word, F word being for feminism. We take young women between the ages of 18 to 25, and we put them through our own film school, which is the beginning of the curriculum. You learn media literacy, you learn how to recognize, you know, just be more active and more critical thinking, be a more diligent critical thinker when you're watching the media. Then the young women learn how to do screenwriting. They learn how to prepare for production. They shoot their own 5-minute films, and they crew up on each other's films. That's myself and the 2 other founders. We went to film school, so we kind of use the same thing and put that in the F word. And then the young women go through a process of editing, which, you know, they have a bunch of editing workshops. And then at the end, they have a film festival, a huge film festival. We had a film festival in May in Upper West Side. It was excellent. It was so packed that we had to turn people away. And then the young women learned, which was, I didn't learn this, but it's important for them to learn how to promote yourself as a filmmaker, how to develop a film festival strategy, because when you apply to film festivals after you make your films, film festivals are expensive. It's like $40 a pop, you know what I mean? So you gotta pick and choose. You know, at first, when I did my first film, I applied to like a bunch, but I was working, you know what I mean, like on a regular, and I wasn't really paying a lot of rent. But nowadays, I wouldn't do that because it's just too expensive, and I have to be strategic. I'm like, okay, where can I position the stickball film where I can find somebody, a distributor, who will help put my film on DVD and sell it, you know what I mean? Or where Netflix people go on a film festival so they could see my film. And then they would make postcards and things like that to promote their films, and just being strategic as branding themselves. Like, if you're gonna be a director for the long haul, you have to brand yourself as your own, you know, you're your own brand. And what's that brand? You know what I mean? And being real clear on what that is. And how do you present that brand over the long haul? You know, what's your body of work? It could be anything. It doesn't have to be one thing. Like, I only do films about puppies, you know, whatever. You just do films about anything, you know what I mean? But what's your brand?
Okay, we have another question. Yes.
Oh, Stephanie. I know you spoke about it earlier about how people will pick up on your accent. Do you think being a product of your environment is a good or bad thing, or is it like there's a way to use film to portray the Latino community in a better way than it is stereotyped now?
I think being from where I am is only a good thing, because a lot of times I encounter people that are not where I'm from, and for me, I feel like it gives me an edge to present stories that haven't been presented before, or that are presented in a different way. You know, there are but so many stories that are new. You know what I mean? It's mostly the same stories flipped. You know what I mean? Somebody who comes from a difficult place, who learns how to face adversity, and then they triumph. Or somebody who is a jerk, and then they go through really hard times, and then they learn how to like be appreciative of the people in their lives. So, and those are stories that are white, black, whatever, you know? And I just think that it's all about the different flavors that you bring to it. You know what I mean? The particular stories, like Raising Victor Vargas, I love that movie so much because, you know, it's about a kid around the way who's trying to get with this girl. There's so many films like that, you know what I mean? Romeo and Juliet, whatever, Star-Crossed Lovers. But this particular film had a different flavor because it was like this little cute papi chulo, and he was trying to get with this girl, but he was trying to act cool in front of his friends, and it had its Dominican flavor, and it was just like I felt like I really connected to that film. You know what I mean? Because, you know, every film has its home. You know what I mean? There's certain films that don't have a home that is just like, it's just crazy stereotypical. My friend, and I really love him a lot, he's my homeboy, like super close friend, but he's director of Soul Plane. And it's tough, you know, and I'm not even gonna badmouth him because his thing was like the script was worse off than the actual film landed up being. And he's struggling with that now. It's just like he's a young Dominican dude from Queens, from Jamaica, Queens. And and he directs a lot of music videos. That's how he got his chance on Soul Plane, because he directed so many music videos. He directs all of 50 Cent's videos and all that. And he's a very talented dude. You know, I edited this. Jesse Terrero, yeah. I edited the short film that he did before Soul Plane. So he's got great ideas. I think with that one, I think he was trying to appeal to an audience that does like that, like pipi caca humor and all that silly stuff, you know, but it's not, I don't know, maybe it's not a big enough audience. So that's what I mean about being strategic, you know what I mean? And when it comes to us, when it comes to our community sometimes, I think about our community and sometimes we do outrageous stuff, you know what I mean? Sometimes we, you know, entre familia, you know, between family, sometimes we perpetuate our own stereotypes and sometimes we wild out, you know what I mean? It's just like, right where I live, it's just like crazy loud music, down below, up on top, and people screaming, hey, and it's like, dang, yo, if somebody would put a camera here and I would see it in a movie, I'd be like, oh my God, that's so stereotypical, you know, but it's real. And so for me as a filmmaker, just trying to like embrace that, but also like put balance in it, it's a very delicate balance because it's like, okay, who are these images going out to and how can people understand it in a way that is just like, you see, Puerto Ricans are loud. She says it herself, you know, it's like, yeah, we're loud, but there's a loving kind of story with this, you know what I mean? We're not just loud, we're this, we're good moms, we're that, you know, we're ambitious, you know what I mean? We hold our families down, you know what I mean? So where we're from is definitely a plus, you know, and it's how you work it. And don't ever let anybody like make you feel small about it. I had kind of had people not, you know, be outright racist to me, but like, oh, actually I did have one editor that I worked for, and this was like, I kind of asked for this too, you know, he had asked me to do something, you know, pick up his dry cleaning. And I was like, what I should have said was like, that's not part of my job. My job is to work this, you know, work the film and sync up the dailies. But I was like, what? I did that. And he's like, listen, with the Puerto Rican attitude, okay? Shut it down. And I was like, oh no, oh no. And I was really upset, but I shouldn't have given him that. That wasn't professional, you know? And after I did that, and he was like with a Puerto Rican attitude, I was like, okay, está bien, I'm not gonna do that again. You know, do all that, you know, business, you know, that's not professional. So, so, you know, you just kind of work it. And the thing with us that I think that is a privilege, to be where we're from and deciding on a career in film is that you're a messenger. You know what I mean? Y'all who want to be in films, actors, directors, pediatricians, you know what I mean? You're messengers for our community. You know what I mean? And I know it's like a heavy weight, like, oh, damn, I don't want to have to like represent my community. I don't speak for every Dominican, whatever. And it's true. You know what I mean? Because you can't possibly, because within one community, within the black community, within Puerto Rico, you can't, one person doesn't speak for everybody because we're so diverse within our community because of some people who went to college, some people who didn't go to college, and that's okay. You know, those different, that wide spectrum of experiences, it's okay. You know what I mean? But if you're gonna tell stories about our community, you're in a unique position to just figure out, how do I tell this story in a way that I'm gonna be proud of, that like years later, people are gonna see this and say, yo, that film still stands up. You know what I mean? That speaks to a universal human experience of people that happen to be black. You know what I mean? And people connect to that. So you're in a very unique, privileged position. And it behooves everybody to take it real serious. You know what I mean? And do the best that they can.
Very good question. Before we take the next question, I have a big question. Many of our students want to go to a city university, college, Hunter, Brooklyn,
yes.
City. You've met a lot of filmmakers in the film and TV industry. Could you talk a little bit about your acquaintances at CUNY schools?
Yes, absolutely. You know what? If I had to do it again, NYU is a very prestigious school, you know, and some people trip out on, like, you know, they see your resume, oh, you went to NYU, whatever. Yo, I'm still paying for that now, and I don't regret it. I do and I don't regret it. You know, like, a part of me wished that I went to Brooklyn or that I came here, you know what I mean? Because it's how you work it. It's how you work it, you know what I mean? It's like, I think to myself, if I were more strategic back in the day, I would have come to this school, you know, that I don't have to spend so much on the tuition, so then I have the money to like figure out, you know, okay, I'm gonna make my films, and you know what I mean, I'm gonna have money left over for myself so I can eat, you know. There were times in NYU that I had to split a pizza with friends and like still be hungry, you know, after that half a slice. And if I had come here, if I had been more strategic, come here and just work it and really get to know everything, get to know all the different departments, so that when you're a director and somebody tells you, you know what, it's gonna take this amount of time to do that because, you know, assuming that you don't really know too much about it, so we're gonna take forever on that. You're like, no, I do know about that. I do know about that. I learned that at Bronx Community College, and this is how long that I think it should take, so make it happen. You know what I mean? So you have the experience, so this is a unique place for you. You know, at CUNY, just take advantage of everything that it has to offer, because you can put yourself anywhere. You can drop yourself on Mars, and you just make it happen. Make it happen wherever you are. And you know, if it's cheaper here than NYU, make it happen.
Okay, now before we go to the reception, we have time for 2 or 3 more questions. Anyone? Yes. I saw a hand. No, was it half a hand? Yeah.
Let me see if I had anything else to show you.
I noticed, Sonia, when we have the receptions after a cookie and some juice, students open up, they'll probably have some questions outside that they don't have here.
I will say though also that whoever's interested in editing, I have business cards, and it's my mission to do what the editor that I worked for did for me, you know, really like mentor me. Whoever's interested in editing, I'll give you my business card, and stay in touch with me, stay emailing me, and I stay in touch with a lot of different young people. You know, we email back and forth, they let me know what they're up to, they show me stuff, and you know, it's usually not like an official, I'm here and you're there relationship. It's just like, you're doing this, wow, that's excellent. You know, here's some feedback on that if you want it or whatever. And so I'm open to that.
We'll exchange cards at the reception.
Yep.
Claire, you had a question.
I forgot.
That's so good.
Rebecca?
Do you have any other like documentaries that you might want to do in the future, like about the neighborhood and stuff like that?
There's a couple of different things. I wanted to do a film about women in hip hop, like about B-girls specifically, because there was this really good film that I saw called The Freshest Kids about just B-boys. And it was an hour and a half long, and it didn't have any B-girls in it. And I emailed the director. I was like, yo, I love your film, but where's the girls? Where are the women at? You know what I mean? Like, you know, and he was like, well, you know, we didn't have time to fit it in. And as an editor, I'm watching his film. I'm like, this section right here was too long. He could have fit it in right there. He just didn't want to, whatever. And that, you know, kind of whatever. So I wanted to make a film about B-girls because there's so many of them. There's also like, I happen to love public access. And let me emphasize that to you guys who are budding filmmakers. Use public access to make your own films. You have like a ready-made audience right there on TV. You know, you have, here it's BCAT, right? Or no, BCAT's Brooklyn, BronxNet. BronxNet in Manhattan is Manhattan Neighborhood Network. I love watching these programs because people like, there's this show on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, Sister You Can Cook. 2 Puerto Rican sisters who cook out of their kitchen. You know, and I love that show. You know, there's this other woman who has a show where she dresses up in a superhero costume and with her little perrito, her little dog. She dresses the dog up and they go on adventures and fight villains. This is wacky, wacky. And you can do whatever you want on these shows. So if you think of a show and like, yo, it would be fresh if I had like a show where I talked to, you know, different people around the community. One of the things that I wanted to do on public access was have a show called Uptown Stories. Because there's so many unusual people uptown, like north of 125th Street. That's what I would focus on. Where I'm just like, Dag, I want to know what do you know, and they're not like regular people that would be featured on American Latino TV or Entertainment Tonight. They're just regular people that you see that you've probably seen since you were born or whatever. And that I just want to know what's their story. There's this dude who plays like a weedle, like this instrument in my neighborhood, and he just rides around, he just shows up on the corner, he just rocks, and then he rides away. And I'm like, what's this dude's story? Like, why? You know what I mean? What's that about, you know? And he just takes off, and he's got like real wild hair, and I hear him when he's coming, like the Mr. Softy truck, you know what I mean? I hear his weedle, and I'm just like, okay, that's cool. I want to, you know, but I don't want to just roll up on that dude. Like, what's your story? And if he has a great story, I don't have a camera, I don't document it, you know? I think that's the other important thing, that y'all are in the unique position, is that we have these great stories in our community that we have the inside track to, that we should document. A lot of times, you know, it's great that non-Latino, non-Black white filmmakers come in and they document our experiences, but we need to also be responsible for telling our own history. So I impart that to you to take that. You know, rock it on public access, rock it in Hollywood, rock it on the internet. There's so many places where you can just rock, so.
Sonia, do you keep a GL2 or a camera in your editing room in your trunk? Are you always like whipping out a camera?
What I do is I borrow other people's cameras because I have to like kind of pick and choose where I'm going to spend my money, and my money's spent on my editing system. So I get the latest version of Final Cut Pro. I have the, you know, latest MacBook Pro and things like that, and I stay up on that, and publications, you know, subscriptions to different editing publications.
One more question I wanted to ask regarding editing platforms. Many of our students, first-year students, second-year students, they buy a Mac laptop and they buy Avid Express Pro.
Mm-hmm.
Does it matter what editing platform?
No.
I mean, could you tell us now, if someone was about to buy a system tomorrow, what platform would you recommend?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't matter. I use Final Cut Pro because at the time it was cheaper than Avid DV Express. And there was just more support for it at the time that I bought it. I prefer Avid. I like Avid better. Just because, you know, there's just certain simple things that it's like more user-friendly to me. Other people love Final Cut Pro. It doesn't matter, you know what I mean? Just as long as you learn the tools and you tell the story, it doesn't matter what you use.
And your transition from analog film editing to digital, was it a long transition, or did you pick it up fairly quickly?
I had to pick it up fairly quickly because if I didn't, I wouldn't have a job. And people had already, I think one of the things that I regret was that I was resistant to the technology. I saw the wave coming, and I was just there still, you know, just floating. You know, I wasn't swimming toward it to learn about it, and other people were already knowing about it, and they edged me out for work. But in terms of the editors union, to work as an assistant editor on TV shows and big movies, you have to be in the union, and it's tough because it's expensive. At first, I worked as an intern for a couple of different films, and you do that for a little bit, see if it's what you really like before you get ready to kick down the money for it. So yeah, I do recommend at some point getting into the union. You can kind of wait as long as you can, though. So.
We're going to continue this in the reception for Sonia, but a round of applause for our guests.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
So out of tradition, we're asking every guest speaker to take a group picture with our
Okay.
students.
Cool.
And that's, we're going to make the first of 2 presentations. So,
Great.
Fernando, if you could join us.
Thank you, guys, for not falling asleep.
Sonia,